element of like, I don't know how this is gonna go.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, yeah, it's so thrilling. Is this
The
okay?
element of the unknown.
Ah.
It's like I could totally mess this up and everyone's gonna know it. But usually they don't know it.
Usually they don't. Yeah, yeah.
All right,
That's
well,
very true.
hello and welcome to episode 6 of Breathing Room. I'm your host, Rob Lavati, and I'm joined in the studio today by Alex Travers. Alex is an incredible local busker, musician, and teacher, among other things. Really excited to have you in the studio today, and really just looking forward to getting to chat with you and getting to hear some of your work. I know in catching up with you a little bit earlier before, there's a number of things that you've been working on, both with your solo work as well as some things you've been collaborating on. So really looking forward to dive into all that and talk about some of the things that you have going on. So just a quick run through of what this show is about. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to see any of the other episodes, but really what we're looking to capture and what I'm looking to capture on this show is have it be a space where I can bring local artists and creatives and local human beings even just on the show
Mm-hmm.
and have them share the things that they work on, the things that they create, and also share the experiences that go along with the process, right?
Mm.
So I brought this up on every episode so far, and I'll do it again. 2 years ago, my father passed away. He took his own life. And that was really kind of the turning point for me when I realized that I needed to start having conversations with people that are both meaningful and I think helping me feel more connected. So that's really kind of the catalyst for this show, if you will. That's not the focal point. That's not what we're here to talk about, but that's kind of what I come bringing to the table on my side of things and what, like I said, has really made me want to continue to connect with people and understand and empathize with their stories.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing we've been doing at the top of every show, it's a little silly putting some intentional dead space, but let's just take 10 seconds or so to get settled in. You can close your eyes if you want. And we'll just take a quick meditative moment, get settled into the studio, and get ready for the show to start. All right? All right, cool. One of these times, I'm just not going to say anything, and I'm going to see how long I can let it go. Like, damn, this is a long 10 seconds. So, Alex, welcome, man. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Do you want to maybe start things off and just give us a quick run through of number one? I'd love to know how you got started playing the violin. And if you could just give us a little bit of a rundown on some of the things that you've been working on lately and anything that we could expect to see coming up soon.
Yeah. So I started playing the violin when I was about 6 years old.
Okay.
I found a bunch of instruments that my grandfather had owned. He used to fix fiddles, so I found a bunch of them in the attic. When I was a kid, my mom's dad, and then I just started playing on them without any strings, and they decided
Okay.
to get some strings to help me out with that and to sign me up for lessons. And I stuck with lessons from 6 years old till all the way through college.
Wow.
Yeah.
How much of that time was with one teacher, or did you really kind of spread amongst?
I had the same violin teacher for 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah, growing
That's
up.
incredible.
Yeah, her name was Miss Jenny Zoe.
Nice.
Yeah. And occasionally I would go to string camps or have a lesson with another teacher occasionally, but it was
Right.
always like the weekly lesson with her.
Yeah.
And that was before I went to college. And then, in college I started having more teachers as you do, and you get out
Right.
into the world and you just meet more people, and then your teachers end up being a lot of people that you end up playing with in the real world when you
That's
start
right.
to do a lot of gigging. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, shout out to your first teacher. That's way cool that you were with her for that long.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been with a teacher for more than 2 years, just with moving around and a bunch of different things that are going on. But it's cool to have that one person that you can go to as a mentor and really be the person that you look up to and that you look towards for guidance on playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. She was really, really a great teacher and really strong too. Because
Yeah.
I know for a fact I was not her best student.
Right.
So
What do you mean? What did that look like for you? Was it hard to get you to practice? Or
it was really hard to get me to practice.
Yeah.
I think I went through. It's funny now because I'm a teacher now.
Yeah.
And then I went through that honeymoon period with a new instrument when it's like it's new and it's exciting. I burned through that after a few weeks, and I was
Right.
like, "This is work. I don't want to do it."
Uh-huh.
And then my parents were like, "No, we made a deal. You're not allowed to stop now." So
Yeah.
I was pretty reluctant to practice for the first 11 years.
Right.
Yeah. And then, along that time, I was like internalizing like the scales and a lot of the fundamentals and all that, like reading sheet music and stuff. But like, I never thought I would be a violinist.
Right.
Yeah, it was very strange. I remember my parents also always took me to the Triangle Youth Symphony because I was in that for a while.
Mhm.
And that's just like a community youth symphony in the Raleigh area. And I was in that for like 8 years. And I remember going and always thinking like, man, when I turn 18 and I'm an adult, I'm going to have free Wednesday nights. It's going to be amazing. I'm not going to have to do this. And it's so funny how that kind of turned around. I mean, I really did love it. I really did love it. But yeah, it's funny how that turned out. And then along the way too, it's like I really got into like skateboarding and playing guitar and
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
You have so many other interests. It's hard to focus on one thing and one thing only.
Yeah.
What was it? What was the shift like for you in that, where you started playing violin, you went through the honeymoon phase, it was tough to practice, you said, for quite a number of years. At what point did that change for you, and did you really begin to enjoy playing and enjoy practicing and working through some of that discomfort and getting better?
Well, I remember a very specific moment. That's actually when I always tried to get out of practice by saying, I would always be like, Mom, I have a stomach ache, or I'm sick, I'm coming down with something.
Right.
Basically, the boy who cried wolf. And then I realized that maybe I should just not do that and start to actually practice and take it seriously. When one time I was actually coming down with something, tried to pull that card.
Yep.
Mom was like, absolutely not. You're lying. Now finish practicing so we can go to your brother's play.
Yeah.
And he was at a college doing a play. And before the play started, there was me splattered over at least 5 seats in the audience when I was a kid. So that was sort of like, okay, I should take this seriously. This is real. And, just learn to enjoy it when I do feel good. So I feel even better when I get better. But yeah, and then once you start to take it more seriously, I started to get to, because I started writing music on guitar and, discovering new artists. And when you're at that age too, you start to discover a new state of being.
Right.
Like in music, you discover new emotions, you discover what feels like new universes, and they're all within you, but you're hearing them through the music of others and all these recordings. So you try to replicate that on your own with the instruments you have. And I started to realize that got easier and easier when I spent more and more time practicing the violin. So I got into the habit of binge practicing, which is when you get so focused on one thing, like the A major scale or something, and you just play it for hours and hours and hours. And to you, it's not hours and hours. You lose track of time. With meditation, it's very similar to that.
Yeah.
It's like those 10 seconds. Oh, they're longer every day.
Right.
But
you get into a groove and you can kind of just keep going and almost transcend time. And yeah. It's nice to get in those grooves.
Yeah, man. And I didn't start getting into those grooves until I was like a teenager.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's hard. It takes a kind of next level focus, and you have to push through those feelings of, man, I really don't want to do this, or there's anything else I'd rather be doing.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you do have to get to the other side of that.
Yeah.
And the only way to get through that, or to get to the other side of it, is to get through it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to push through that discomfort and just keep practicing and kind of force yourself to be there.
And then, that wave you get after you've been in that state, and then you come back to reality and you realize like, oh my gosh, I haven't eaten, my bladder's full and my back really hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good feeling. I kind of like it.
Yeah.
It's like waking up from a really long nap and you're like, where am I?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, man.
The most recent time I think I've done that was with trying to learn different funk stylings on the guitar. I just pulled up a couple different YouTube videos and sat there for 2 or 3 hours and just went at it.
Nice. What kind of tunes were you learning?
I was just learning some just straight up funk tunes, like almost like James Brown type guitar licks and stuff that if you're not used to playing in that way, you really have to pay attention to what the picking hand is doing. There's a lot of just interesting syncopation going on and things that you wouldn't experience in normal playing.
Yeah.
So it definitely took all of me to like sit there and like take in what this guy was telling me to do. But
yeah,
it's fun. It's fun when you can, like I said, get in those grooves and just kind of unplug and work on one thing.
Have you seen that? Did you see that Bootsy Collins video, the vintage one, where he's talking about the power of the one?
No, I did not.
Oh, dude, it's so good. It's like a 30-second long video.
Okay.
But you know, James Brown was all about the one. It's like you gotta give me the one. If you can give me the one, the first beat of the measure, the bar, you can do anything else you want for the 3 beats of the bar. But you gotta give me that first beat of the bar. So when he started hiring the band that became Parliament, it started off with like Bootsy and all those guys when they were like teenagers. They always did the power of the one, and just you can do anything as long as you have the downbeat, and that like had a big influence on their playing, and it turned into funk, and that's how Bootsy Collins kind of explained keeping the funk. It's like if you can keep the first beat of the measure, you can do anything else. And the video's so great because he's just enjoying himself, having a great time, and he's just holding down the one, and he's just like, you do bum ba. Da, 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 da. Then you can do anything you want, man. Just gotta keep the one. Boom. Da. And, oh, man, he's such a beautiful dude.
Yeah. And there's definitely some truth to that, right? That's what we feel or what we hear when we're listening to funk. A lot of the time, it's that heavy driving force on the one.
Yeah, and how everything just dances around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a lot of great funk music in this city, at least.
Yeah, there is. Have you been to the Funk Jam?
I have, yeah. Gone quite a number of times. It's hard to get out that late on like a Tuesday night, but
yeah, but dude, so many people do it.
I know.
It's so wild.
I know.
Man.
It's like, man, do we all have to go to work tomorrow, or what's everyone doing? Yeah. But yeah, no, Funk Jam is great. I like when they have the guys from the Fritz over there. Are you familiar with them?
No, not really.
They're a local band. They've toured nationally a couple times. They all went to music school together. So really just kind of technical funk meets this kind of alternative rock. It has like a heavy component to it.
Are you talking about are they the house band that plays there?
They are one of the house bands over there.
Are they the one with like Phil on drums and Derek on trombone?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of the singer. The guy who plays the keys. He has a really big afro.
I like him already.
It's going to slip me it will come back to me, but yeah, no, they're awesome and they play over there quite a bit. Yeah, they have, it seems like pretty standard rotations of people that they go through over there at Funk Jam.
Yeah.
Have you ever done anything like that?
I did. Yeah, I have. I did the Funk Jam a lot when I first moved to town.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like a lot. I only did it twice though. Those are just so intense. 2 times. It's like I remember people raging, having a great time, and dancing. And it feels like a weekend at a festival, but it was only 2 nights spaced out a week apart.
That's cool.
Any indication of how intense that is?
Who'd you get to play with?
I don't even remember.
Yeah.
But they were good. I mean, they were guys who I see them all the time.
Right.
And at the time I was doing it, like I was just new to town. I didn't really have any references or anything. So I was even just getting into busking, so I didn't know anyone or have anything to do. I just wanted to play some music with people, and they let me do that. But occasionally I see them now. But there's a few circles. I feel like there's a few different circles of musicians in Asheville, like maybe 4 or 5 different ones. And like, we all like recognize. I recognize them, at least like everyone. But a lot of them, it's like I don't know their names. I'm telling names.
Right.
You ever get to the point where it's almost like your brain is maxed out as far as like how many people
it can remember. Yeah, like your dictionary is full.
Like. Yeah, and then it starts to associate like, oh, this face with this name.
Yep.
And it's like it puts on a total stranger. And you're like, oh my God, it's Patrick. That's not Patrick. No, that wouldn't make sense. I'm in Florida right now. That wouldn't. Like, yeah.
I have no shame anymore about forgetting names. Like, I will just come right out and say it. If I'm talking to somebody, I forgot their name, and I'm like, I'm really sorry, I forgot your name. Could you please remind me? Because what you find is, I think it's just more common than we would think. And
Yeah.
half the time that you're thinking that other person is standing there thinking, like, oh man, I forget their name. So rather than just like make it this big awkward thing for like half an hour where I'm waiting for them to say their name, I just ask them.
Yeah, and that's really honest too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so honest.
And it's not like I forgot your name because I don't like you. I just
Yeah,
there are lots of names. Lots of names.
Lots of names.
Yeah.
Whoever wrote the book on names, man, that was a long book.
They should have shortened that book.
No.
We could have had like 10 names.
It wouldn't make everything so much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like coming up with nicknames for people that I don't tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like a personal nickname that helps me relate their name to them.
Like, could you give me an example?
Yeah, like Matt with the. I can't come up with an example. This is embarrassing. I like to try to remember something about either the way the person looked that day or something they said. So,
Okay.
like, if I was talking to Matt and Matt was wearing a matte gray shirt, I got nothing, man. I don't know. Pretty much it's just trying to get like multi-factor authentication going here, where it's like I can remember their face and remember something about them and try to relate those together. Otherwise, I'm going to forget.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's all association in the brain,
Yeah.
you know.
That's why a powerful tool for me, too, has been repeating somebody's name after I meet them.
Yes.
Like, immediately back saying, like, oh, Alex, nice to meet you. Alex, and say it like 48 more times.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Just don't let anybody catch you saying someone else's name to yourself in a dark closet.
Yeah, just like,
Alex.
Alex.
Yeah. I feel bad, Matt, because I feel like you, before we started, you said don't clear the throat. And ever since we started, I want to clear my throat so bad. So
Me too.
the next time we see each other on the street, it might just be, hey, Matt, I'm sorry about clearing my throat, man. But I remember your name because of that.
It's okay. Just a little, let me clear my throat here.
Yeah, just get it out. All right.
So, something that I really like about your playing and that I'm excited to see in operation today is that you often use a looping pedal. So maybe for those who aren't as familiar, could you talk a little bit about, number one, just what a loop pedal does,
Yeah.
And how you like to use it in your performance and what it's done for you, and me just thinking about it, just some of maybe the technical challenges that come along with playing with a loop pedal, and if there's been anything you've had to kind of work through or get used to.
Yeah. Well, for those who don't know, a loop pedal is it's a guitar pedal that will record the signal you put into it, so you can play a riff or a lick or anything really, and it'll record it when you click it. And then as soon as you click it again, it'll immediately start playing it back.
Yep.
So it creates this the sonic background of whatever you played beforehand, and you can layer on top of that as it's playing back. So it's a great tool for learning like the essentials of like how to build multiple parts on top of each other, and you're listening to nothing but a recording of yourself, but it'll keep playing it back like eternally until the battery dies or until until you don't pay your electric bill and you run out of electricity. It'll just keep playing it back, and you can layer on it as many times as you want to until it maxes the pedal out, which I've done before. It's a lot of fun. But
what is that, like 20 different loops or something like that?
Yeah, it just keeps track of the data. So if it's like a long track, it's just going to take up more data on the space.
Right.
So if you do like a 5-minute long track, by the time you've added all the parts, that's like half an hour has gone by.
Right.
And if you can find a pedal with that much memory, like by that point, I'm like, dude, just buy a console.
Right.
Console at that point. So it's kind of tricky, but it's an instrument in of itself because it's not in addition to like the violin or to the guitar or whatever instrument you're playing through it. In of itself, it is its own instrument. So you can, and it's not going to really count give you a rhythm or a beat, you have to establish that. So you have to be really personally accountable to yourself for your own playing.
I think that's the hardest part, right?
It,
Is keeping time and just making sure that everything lines up nicely, that you hit the start and end of all your loops.
yeah, it is, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because it's like you have to kind of train your mind to have really good rhythm. But that's a great part. But that's good musicality anyway.
Right.
Is being able to do that, I believe. And on the other side of that, a lot of creativity comes from messing up a loop, from playing the wrong notes and hearing them back, because it forces you to go in a different direction.
Right.
It forces you to think, oh, I was going to go down that path, but I totally just messed it up. Wait, I can go down it again and make another mistake.
New door.
Yeah. And, it can sound terrifying, but it's a great way to come up with new ideas.
Yeah.
And some of the most beautiful stuff has come out of a lot of mistakes on a loop station that turns out to be like really beautiful, like melody parts or harmony parts.
That's cool.
Yeah.
How did you get started playing the loop, playing with the loop pedal in your setup? Was that really a function of busking and trying to make your sound bigger while you're busking, or what was the primary necessity?
Well, it wasn't directly dependent on busking. I got my first loop station when I was in high school.
Okay.
I thought it was a really cool guitar pedal. I can't remember where I saw it. I think maybe I saw Buckethead use it or something.
Nice.
Buckethead or Sean Lane or a guitar shredder
Right.
like that. And I was like, oh, I want to get that. So I got it. I used it a little bit to write some string parts, but I didn't really take it very seriously. I really got back into it after college and after a few years in the world. And when I got into busking, I did it because, when I first moved here, I hadn't been playing the violin for a few years. So I had lost a lot of the skills that I'd gotten in school. So I needed a practice tool to kind of speed up my progress so I could get back on track with where I wanted to be and the progress I wanted to be making on the violin. And Loop Station is a great practice tool for that.
Definitely.
Like what we were just talking about. And then I tried doing it and then the first time I tried doing it busking, it was like the light bulb went off, because first off, I was like, I don't have to memorize all this Bach anymore. Right. I can take a break. This is so nice. And then I was like, and I can just play a few chords, and then it's like having a second rhythm section. It's great.
Right.
I mean, there's only so long you can do that. But it just became a really useful tool because I found I could learn a lot about my own playing and I could hear how I sound when I'm playing in front of people on the street or in the public, which you get to practice performance, which is not an easy thing to do unless you're booking shows and doing shows constantly.
Right.
And it was just great to always have an outlet to learn more and more and more, because you study like classical theory, like SATB, or like how Bach writes like a few different voices, like a 3-voice fugue or something, or how he voices chords, and then you can apply that directly to a loop station and use it as a tool to, push your sound rather than just strumming the chords on the violin and making everything linear. You can kind of think outside the box and build up counterpoint. Counterpoint experience and all that.
And almost create your own orchestra in a sense.
Yeah, and then once you get that going, and then you also learn how it affects amps and fidelity and why there really is no sound as good as a live acoustic orchestra. There's only so much you can do with it.
Right.
And like I said, it is a second instrument in of itself. So you get really, you go down that rabbit hole. And then on top of that, because it just plays it back, you have to improvise. So you get really, really good at improvising, and, that's something that I didn't have very much experience with on the violin, and I really wanted to get that up, because I was like, if I can improvise, it'll make my life a whole lot easier.
Yeah, sure thing. That and learning some jazz tunes, I think that will help with your improv.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
I think it's as good a time as any to jump in. Maybe if you want to show us something on the violin in your loop station, play a tune for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
How much time has gone by already?
It has been 25 minutes of pleasure.
Oh my gosh,
I
25
know.
minutes.
Yeah, it flies by. So, yeah, if you just want to share something, we could spend a little bit of time talking about it. Is there a piece that comes to mind, something that you'd like to share?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'll do a loop for you.
Okay.
But I also have a EP
Oh, cool.
CD I'd like to show you
Yeah.
because now also being as a songwriter, a lot of my musical ideas begin as loops, and
Yeah.
then it's always fun to see how they evolve. But yeah, I'm still heavy improv. I'm still heavy on the improv when it comes to playing on the loop station. So,
Cool. And your EP, that's on Spotify, right?
it
It's
is on
called
Spotify.
Leave This World Alive.
Leave This World Alive.
Very cool.
Yeah, yeah, and that was and that was recorded locally, all with local musicians.
Nice.
Local studios.
When did you release that?
I released that in October.
Okay. So still pretty fresh.
Still pretty fresh. It was recorded over a year ago.
Okay.
And the songs were written well over a year ago.
Okay.
So it was one of those things where it's like that you get that tunnel vision on a project,
Yeah.
and then you get through the tunnel, and it's like all the work is done, and you're just like, I'm just gonna spend some time in the sun now. It was really dark in that tunnel,
Right.
and then one day it turns into a week, into a month, and then before
Yeah.
you know it, it's like you're a different person than you were a year ago
Right.
when you did the project. And like, I'm still proud of it and all that, but it's funny listening to those tunes, and I was like, oh, I was in a different place, huh?
Yeah.
It's funny. But do you ever have projects like that in your life? Like,
Oh, for sure.
Mhm.
I think it's like that with a lot of my projects. I'm pretty notorious for not finishing my projects. I have a lot of songs that I just started and never got around to wrapping up. And then by the time I come back to revisit it and want to finish it, I don't feel the same way about it. Either I decide that, nah, I'm not going to work on this one, or I find something else that I like to work on more. So I definitely have that ADHD, I think, when it comes to my songwriting.
yeah. Do you ever find it strengthens a song or improves a song when you go back to it after you've taken time away from it and you feel differently about it, and then you go back to the material and you're like, I think I can tweak it just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think something that's also helped a lot has been sharing those songs with people. Because often when a song isn't ready, we keep it pretty close to the chest and don't want to share it with people. But
Yeah.
at the times that I have done that, I've gotten some really good feedback. And people have told me, like, oh, I really like this part. And it's a part that I wasn't even crazy about, So just getting an outsider's perspective when you've been just sitting there mulling over a piece, I think is a really good thing to do.
Yeah.
And play it before you feel ready to play it.
Yeah, dude, that's the best thing to do. I think when writing music, it's like just playing in front of an audience just always improves creativity.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, I know exactly what you mean when it's like you play something and someone's like, you think they're gonna be psyched about one part of it, and then you're like, I really like that. And you're like, oh, that.
I was thinking about getting rid of that. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Where do you usually play your? Do you share your stuff just at like house parties, or do you go to open mics for that?
I did open mics when I first moved down here. I haven't done those lately. For me, really, my primary means of jamming with people has been just playing with people at the house lately. So we have a little studio set up in the basement, and we'll just kind of sit down there. Good friend of mine is a local singer, songwriter, and I've been playing bass for him. So we'll just kind of hang out and work on tracks at the house.
Oh, word.
Would like to get to a point where I'm out performing again, but just haven't been there lately. Yeah.
Is it a he or a she?
His name is Nate Robinson. He was on episode 1 of A Breathing Room. So check him out.
The pilot episode.
The pilot, yeah. He was the co-pilot. But, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Yeah, let me get...
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and get set up?
Do some
And,
loops.
yeah, for sure. And while Alex is getting set up there, just for anybody listening at home that wants to check out, you can check out Alex on Instagram at Alex Travers, Travers music. And your website, Alex, is just alextraversmusic.com as well?
Yes, alextraversmusic.com. Keep it pretty updated.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you do it all yourself?
I do.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, Yeah, it's weird having your own website. It's very strange.
It
And
is.
updating it yourself,
It takes a lot of work to keep it up to date.
it does, yeah.
What platform do you use?
I use Squarespace.
Yeah, Squarespace. It's a popular one to use for sure.
Yeah, and it's taken me like every year I have to go through and relearn how to use it again
Right.
because I'm terrible with technology.
Right.
Except for loop stations.
Hopefully, we'll find out.
Hopefully, yeah. Oh gosh.
No pressure.
Oh god. Cool. Can you hear that okay, Matt?
All right. That was awesome, man.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah, that's fun. I did it for one of those loop of the days
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's great because like each one's I try to like make it up as the video goes along.
Okay.
And that one just stuck with me. So I've been toying around with that melody in my head for a few days now.
Yeah, it's amazing how much depth you were able to create there, both melodically and rhythmically, using the loop station there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like each layer you added was just a really nice new component of either rhythm or melody that I liked a lot.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's also one of the benefits of playing the violin. You can do a lot with it.
Right.
You know?
Very versatile.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of new stuff you can do with it too that they're always discovering new ways to play all instruments. But,
Right.
yeah.
What is a new way to play the violin?
Well, I don't know. I mean, new in the perspective of it's a pretty old instrument, but this thing
Right.
called chopping. I mean, just looping it with like a harmonizer pedal and getting all those lower voices in, you know, modulating this tone and everything. That's all new stuff. And it's like we're just beginning to scratch the surface of what that can do with acoustic instruments, let alone bowed acoustic instruments. But I really like chopping. It's so much fun. I got bandmates that got to tell me not to chop as much because it's a great way to play like the rhythm section and to get the acoustics, but it gives this high end frequency similar to a hi-hat.
Oh, okay.
So you can get some really, really cool rhythms in there. And it's really percussive, but you can add a touch of harmony in that. And let me show you what that is, actually.
Yeah, please do. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
That's
So
really percussive.
very percussive, very percussive. I was playing at one of the gigs this past weekend, out in Charleston. I was playing, and I play with this guitarist in the band named Dan Keller, and he's a shred monster on the jazz guitar, man. And he really gets into his solos. And my problem is I get excited, and then I just want to chop. I'm just like, I just want to chop. And when you already got a drummer in the band, and someone else is doing a solo, it's really easy to step on their solo. And there's this one moment at one of the shows where I look over and I'm like, man, Dan's getting into it. And his head's just doing this. And I'm like, he is feeling it. And then I realize he's making eye contact with me. He's telling me to stop chopping because he's soloing right now. And then as soon as I stopped, he goes back to it. I was like,
You thought he was really vibing out, but
I know. But yeah, but it's funny because chopping it's such a peculiar, quirky little sound, you know? But once you get into the chop hole, it's just like, oh.
What are some situations that it would be really effective in a band setting?
It can be really effective when you want to add just a little bit of a punch to like just some basic chords,
right?
Without making the sound too dense, you know, because it adds a lot more space. It's not going to be as taking up as much sound in the room as just a bowed instrument, but it's just going to be a bit more abrupt, and kind of like, you know, bright, you know. But it's great for if you if you have just guitar and violin. I feel like that's really the best thing for it when you want to add a little bit extra oomph to the accompaniment.
Yeah.
But it's tricky to when you love just doing something because it's so much fun. It's hard to put the brakes on and try to be tasteful with it because it's just like I want to add it to everything. You know? I guess I'm still in the honeymoon phase with chopping technique. You could say,
where you just want to pour it all over everything.
Yeah. But there's some really, really great folk musicians and folk bands that have violinists who chop, and it works really, really good for violin covers of pop songs.
Oh,
actually.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah, especially a lot of the pop songs nowadays where they all have very, very similar backbeats.
Yeah.
Like, like that.
Right.
And it's like you can do that with the bow, and it's yeah, but it's fun.
Is that something you do quite a bit in your busking? Do you get into like the new pop stuff and layer that at all?
Not really.
That's good.
Not really.
That's
you
good.
know, I tried that. I've definitely had gigs.
Yeah.
And residencies where I've had to do that. You know, it comes with the territory. But when it comes to busking, man, if I don't like the tune, I'm probably not going to play it.
That's good.
You know,
it's a good principle to live by.
Yeah, and I've been doing it for so long. Like when I first started, I did some covers, but I didn't do covers of like the popular songs because, I mean, most of the songs on the charts, we're kind of living in this melody-free age right now, where it's about the groove, and it's pretty far from a melody instrument like the violin. Like there's not a whole lot you can do with the top voice or the main part, you know.
Yeah.
It's just the aesthetics kind of shifted in that way, which is cool, man.
Are there some tunes that you do really like to play? Some things that you find yourself coming back to time and time again?
Yeah, man. Pixies tunes.
Yeah.
I don't know why, man. I just love the Pixies.
Fun to play.
One of my favorite band growing up. Still one of my favorite bands.
Cool.
And I like those because people would never expect to hear it on a violin.
Right.
That occasionally like a Nirvana tune or something, or like something by the Doors. You know, the jazz standards are always a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to playing, like if I'm performing in public, like first off, if I'm performing on the violin, it's like that's my voice.
Right.
You know, I don't want to completely objectify it all the time. You know, if it's my voice, I want to be as honest as possible, as often as possible. And that's the best thing about playing on the street, is because there's no filter. You can do or say anything.
Right.
Of course, anyone can do or say anything back to you.
Right.
But that's what makes it worthwhile, you know.
Walk away from you.
Yeah. And you learn a lot too.
What's the experience like of playing on the street and busking versus playing up on a stage for a captive audience?
Well, it's harder to get people's attention on the street, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Because there's a weird psychology. I think if you're playing a show and people have bought tickets to it, or they see you on a stage, automatically they see you on a stage, a literal pedestal, and they assume that there's value in that, like,
Right.
and they're gonna pay attention because it's this consensus of they must have it together.
They belong here.
They belong there.
Yeah.
You know, and we've all done that. Like, you know, looked up at the stage and be like, "Oh, those guys are so mysterious, but they've done it. They're the real thing."
Yeah.
And then it's like you get up on the stages and it's just like you get imposter syndrome, and it's like, "This is it, really? I mean, I'm having a blast, but
do I belong here?
do I belong here?"
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, there's on the street, it's no one's gonna do that,
Right.
you know. But that's what makes it more special too. But it's funny though, and you know, Abby's great about this too. It's like, and other buskers who get crowds, man. It's like if you get a crowd, it's not about getting that first person to listen to you. It's the second person who listens to you with the first person,
Right.
and then you start to see how that affects more people, and people accumulate. It's very strange.
Abby can get quite a crowd going.
Oh
I've
my
seen her with
gosh.
200 or 300 people out in front of her, blocking off the street. Like,
Yeah.
she sure knows how to do that.
Yeah, man. She's she's great about that too. And the spoons are great because if you hear them in public, man, you can hear them from like a block away.
I know.
Yeah, so you
Very
hear
audible.
spoons, and it's just like it just calls people. Yeah, but then it's like on a stage too. It's like it can be more nerve-wracking, but I guess that also depends on the stage. I mean, there's some stages I love playing on, and then some stages I'd rather be busking.
Right.
You know, but at different stages and different place events call for different colors of sound and all that. And it depends on the gig, too.
Right.
You know, if it's a ticketed gig, it's like, yeah, it's more pressure on the stage for sure, but people are going to listen more attentively. Or even house shows, you know, which is really cool. But if it's like a free gig, like a restaurant gig or something, you know, there's still room for that art and that honesty there.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, you're just there to provide the ambiance, and yeah, it's really cool. Do you have any do you have any of your favorite venues around town? Like, do you have any favorites?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, what are some of those?
I like going to the Mothlight. I think they have a lot of good stuff over there in West Asheville.
Mhm.
Especially weeknights, they even have really good shows.
Yeah. Yeah, I got those free Mondays.
They have the free Mondays, that's right.
Yeah.
So you can definitely catch me at the Mothlight. One of my favorite venues, in terms of the building itself, is what is the name of it? Over in West Asheville, Ambrose West.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's an old church that they renovated.
They did a beautiful job.
Beautiful, and the sound is great in there. They don't put on too many shows over there,
Mhm.
and it's generally a bit of an older crowd, but it's still a really nice venue, and I like going over there. I personally tend to avoid the Orange Peel. That's nothing against them or their establishment. I've just found that I like some of the more intimate venues in town, where maybe you're not going to see the same person who's performing over at the Orange Peel, but the Gray Eagle is another example of a venue that I like to go to. I just like that smaller room where you can fit 300-400 people in there and have a full house. Yeah.
And when it's like, and there's nothing like seeing an artist you respect and admire, and you're like, I could reach out and touch them.
Right.
It's like they're an arm's length away. You know,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
It was cool. I saw, are you familiar with Charlie Crockett? He is a singer-songwriter. He does really country shtick. He was a train hopper and a busker for about 10 years before he got recognized. And I saw him over at the Gray Eagle, and it was like that same thing. I was kind of blown away. I'm like, man, this guy is so talented, and I could spit on him right now because he's so good. I'm not going to, but I could. I definitely could.
Well, you know, at some shows, that's a compliment.
Yeah. Depends where you are in the world.
True. Well, and also like all those like punk shows and stuff where they like to spit on each other.
That sounds like a good time. A good way to get hepatitis or something like that.
Well, nowadays, maybe.
Yeah. Are there any venues that you really like to go to?
Mothlight's definitely up there.
For sure.
There are so many new venues now. It's insane.
Yeah.
Let's see. One World West is nice. I love the Sly Grog.
Oh yeah, Sly Grog's a cool spot.
That place is amazing. That place will always have a special spot in my heart,
Definitely.
man. Because like the owners are so cool. Like they're in it for just the right reasons.
Right.
They're so chill. That's definitely one of my favorite places to play.
Yeah.
And they're always laid back.
Yeah.
Always laid back. So, yeah, Sly Grog. Where else? Like DIY venues. I dig the DIY venues more than anything else.
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
Do any come to mind?
Well, aside from the Sly Grog?
Yeah.
There is, where was it? There's this new building, and it's like right next to a rock saloon that's right next to One World West. And it's an arts building.
Okay.
And it's very small. Very, very small. And I was playing a show there once, and I was in a duo with my friend Carly Tate. And it was awesome. There was this band called Sunstep who was playing, and then there was this other guy who was playing who I'd heard was an amazing musician, and I can't remember his name, but it was there's so much variety in the show. It wasn't like like a music venue. It was just like an arts building, and we get there, and like the show was like in a really small room, but there were like projectors going, and it was super dark.
Oh, cool.
Right on the intersection of Haywood and, just a few blocks from here.
Yeah.
In the intersection of Haywood and the interstate. And then, like, we did our set, and then the guy who played after us, his set was playing to, it was a lot of spoken word and acting out.
Yeah.
Really intense stuff.
Okay.
Or for a backing track with a projector on him the whole time. Very, very, very crazy. And then after that was like math rock. So it was like you had all these
very wide combinations.
Everyone's just having a good time. And it's in a super small room.
Yeah.
But I love spots like that. And spots like that pop up and they disappear like that sometimes. So you really got to be always active and out and just talking with people and being social to find spots like that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, if I'm not mistaken, you don't drink, right? So, you've been sober for a number of years now?
Yeah. I'm in August 24th, 2016 was my last drink.
Cool, man. Well, first and foremost, good for you.
Thanks.
Assuming that was a decision that you had to make for yourself. And I can only imagine that it could be challenging at times in this town to have that choice where I'm not going to drink alcohol and to be in a place where it's so readily available and celebrated.
Well, it kind of was at first.
Yeah.
But I never really got that impression that it was more challenging to quit drinking here than it would have been anywhere else.
Right.
I know Asheville's like beer city and has won a lot of awards, and there's a lot of breweries here.
Right.
And, some of my good friends like brew beers, and it's such a great craft. It's so great to see how that's evolved so quickly.
Sure.
But no, it wasn't as big an issue because the support systems, you find a support system, and, that helps a lot too. And you find people who understand where you're going from, but there's a lot of people who also just don't drink anyway.
Right.
So if you go to a club or you go to a show or something, like you're going to gravitate towards those people who are like-minded in that regard, who like aren't, you can tell, when it's 3 a.m. and you're closing out at the bar, you can kind of tell who else in the bar hasn't had a drink.
Right.
And usually chat because you want to have a coherent conversation at that point. But it wasn't too much of an issue. But I had moved here from Nashville, Tennessee, where I think drinking is far more celebrated.
Sure.
And abused.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have, I think, a lot of, I never really got the impression like, oh, it's so hard to quit drinking here.
Right.
I never thought it was like something geographical.
Sure.
It was far too personal for that.
Sure.
That being said, it was I did have a lot of skepticism, and a lot of people who said I would never get sober being a musician.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, just because, you work in venues and you're around it all the time.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a superpower at the end of the night when you have to settle and you can still do math.
Yeah.
And I'm not very good at math, but, if
So
I'm the
you
only
keep
one,
all of your abilities?
yeah, if I'm the only one who's not been drinking, I turn into Einstein. I feel like.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you drink?
I do. I didn't drink until I turned 21. I was straight edge. I didn't drink, smoke, or anything until I was 21. And then 3 days after my 21st birthday, I had my first beer. And then I think just went completely tanked, totally downhill since. No, I'm being a little bit facetious, but certainly have like found my experimentation later on in life.
Mm-hmm.
And have found, I think, a pretty healthy routine, if you will, when it comes to drinking. Like I definitely know what my limit is now.
Yeah.
Alcoholism is something that runs pretty deep in my family.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as I get older, I pay more and more attention to that and realize that there are components of that are within me as well.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen this little like tiny monster of an addict that's come out of me. I think some people may know what I'm talking about, but it's just like that little addictive personality that some people have.
Yeah.
And I can see the various times that mine's come out. And luckily, it's, knock on wood, it's been a little while. But anytime it does come out, I just definitely take note of it and realize, like, okay, that's something that's within me. I have to pay attention to that and not let myself get into any just unhealthy habits or anything that I wouldn't want to be doing more often, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that little voice, I mean, that's the disease of addiction itself.
Yeah.
And it's funny how it's like we might associate it with drinking or like a substance abuse or something, but that's really just a symptom. It comes from the same place and just has a lot of darkness.
Right.
That and it vents itself in more ways than just that, you know?
Yeah.
Than just drinking or using too many drugs or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like the way that you put it, that it's a symptom of the disease of addiction. And regardless of how that shows itself in somebody, whether it's someone like me who I use nicotine too much, that's like one of my vices.
Dude, yeah, we are in the same boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Want to go
I'm
hang
like
out by the
sitting
gas
here
station
kind of
later?
jonesing. I need to smoke right now.
Oh my
Let's
gosh.
get out of here.
Yeah.
No, it's like that could be the same thing as somebody who is addicted to heroin and can't get themselves off of that. It's coming from a similar place of that disease of addiction, just craving something that it does or doesn't need. Makes you feel like you do need it.
Yeah. And there are like different ways of feeling it too.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's the mental aspect of it, but then there's also the physical aspect of it in your body. And
Sure.
those are like the physical withdrawal symptoms that people experience. And like even with nicotine, it comes out in like temper or whatnot. But it's
agitation,
you know, like they say, like restless, irritable, and discontent.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
I remember when I heard that, I was like, man, I might be an alcoholic. No, I'm not.
It can't be.
Nah, that's wrong. And then yeah, but yeah, it's funny how it pops up like that. But you can also channel that. I find you can channel that energy, because where that comes from, that kind of darkness, that feeling of like, oh, I know it's bad for me, I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
I know it's bad for me, but I want to do it again. It's like I know nicotine is bad for me, I know it's a poison, but I want it now. That drive to fulfill that is something that I feel like you can channel elsewhere. And that's one of the best ways to turn something like an addiction or a dependency into a strength. If you find a way to channel it away from the symptom that it wants, like be it cigarettes or drugs.
Redirect it.
And redirect it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's one of the best things you can do. And it's tricky because if you try to do that immediately without nurturing like self-awareness and just jump to like, oh, like I used to do a lot of coke and now I run 10 miles a day.
Right.
Why did I ever need to do drugs?
Right.
If you try to just jump to that, it turns into just purely substitution.
Sure. And now you're addicted to running 10 or 20 miles a day.
Yeah.
And you feel weird if you don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I feel like I'm starting to make less and less sense.
No, that makes total sense. And I think the thing about that addictive energy is it's almost manic in nature, right? It wants to be successful. It wants to get what it wants. So if you can apply that towards something else, like that's been almost the manifestation of this podcast for me. kind of coming from some of the same energy of I want something and I want it now, trying to apply that to something that's going to be better for me in the long run than drinking or trying some new drug or whatever it is,
Yeah.
So,
And that's a great way to use that energy too, man, is on a podcast. Because
yeah.
that's like nurturing real connections with real people.
Yeah.
Like face to face too.
It's been super cool. It's been, like, on one hand, it's been nice to be able to capture this moment and put it out there for other people to see.
Mm-hmm.
But I've just been having really great conversations with people on this show. Been really, some people who I've known for quite a while and some people like yourself who I'm just really getting to know and getting to meet. So it's been a cool way to connect with people, and it feels like a productive use of that energy for sure. So,
Nice.
have people been pretty understanding in your life, whether old friends or family, when it comes to your not drinking?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the ones who didn't, I mean, yeah, because if they, of course, they'd be pretty open-minded about it and supportive of. I mean, if they don't want you to, if they're, oh yeah, yeah. If they're not supportive of your desire to improve your quality of life, they're not your friends.
Right. Which, it sucks to learn that lesson sometimes.
It does, man.
Yeah.
It hurts. But yeah, I mean, it definitely helped too that I mean, that's why I moved to Asheville. So, like, my brother lives here. So
Yep.
I had a family member in town.
Yeah.
He helped me a lot. And to just be in a new town where I didn't really know anyone. And that helped because a lot of the people who knew the other Alex lived in another state. And
Right.
I just never saw them. Most of them I never saw again.
Yeah.
But I found out like who my true friends were because the ones who I spoke to and said, "Hey, I'm never coming back. I need to go do this and change a lot." The real friends were really supportive about it.
Yeah.
So that was really eye opening because you start to realize who are your friends.
Yeah.
It's like who is actually gonna show genuine interest in just in my well being.
Right. And the things that are going to be the best for you, even if they're not the most fun for the friendship or whatever,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about making some like rock solid friendships or really discovering like how good some of the people in your life can be. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Friends and family.
What has been your primary way of connecting with people in that way? Is it through music? Do you have a group that you're connected with, or what's your primary way of meeting people and connecting with friends around here?
Well, I mean, there are always groups.
Yeah.
Group meetings you can go to. A lot of it is I've been really bad about connecting with people over the past 2 years now.
Yeah.
Just because I've been so focused on music. And that, again, it goes back to tunnel vision.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something you got to be careful with too, because that's a lot of alone time.
Sure.
A lot of alone time. And then you start to be alone with yourself, and that self-speculation slowly turns into self-manipulation. That turns into insanity.
Yeah.
And that turns into frustration, and you get really irritable. And
yeah.
That downward spiral. I find the best way to connect with people, though, is just go out and meet them.
Yeah.
I got the friends who are like musician friends who I make music with, and that's us sharing our ideas, our emotions,
mm-hmm.
who are our honesty with each other. But just, playing for people, getting to know people, but I always struggle to really get to know people, especially in bars.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can really get to know someone at a bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's loud music. There are a lot of people.
Yeah, they're going there to get away from... Most of them are there to get away from something.
Sure.
And it's like, how do you know someone when they're, like, trying to get away from life?
Yeah.
How do you know what they're really like? The volume thing, too, is really crazy. But...
I'm getting old. I'm so sensitive to it now when I'm out at a bar. And I'm just like, man, it's loud here.
How old are you?
I'm 28.
You're 28?
Yeah.
Oh, you're not that old.
I feel old.
No, you're not old.
I'm just
old.
crotchety.
You're not crotchety either.
Let me have this. Let me have this.
Yeah, no, but it's I mean, busking is always a good way to connect people. It's because you are again sharing your honesty with people. Performing is always great. But yeah, it's funny. I'm just not. I'm very much a homebody, and I think I'm in denial about that.
Oh, me too.
I'm in so much. Ever be in denial about something that's such a
Oh,
huge
yeah.
part of your personality?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Because you don't want to be a homebody. It's just if you are, you are.
Yeah.
And you may have to work harder than some people to put yourself out there and to go enjoy doing things. But I don't think it's a bad thing to be a homebody. I think it's just something to recognize about yourself and put in the extra effort to try to do the opposite action there and get yourself out of the house.
Yeah. When were you in denial about being a homebody? Or did you ever feel that?
Yeah, no, I think quite recently, actually. I've kind of gone through this paradigm shift in my own life where I noticed as I've gotten older, I've become more of an introvert, and I hated that. I really didn't like that about myself, because I associated being an extrovert as a strong quality, if you will.
Yeah.
We're extroverted. People like you. You're funny. You're easy to talk to. You're introverted. You're the opposite of those things. And in the last year, I think I've had to kind of work through that and realize that it's not introverted bad, extroverted good. It's so much more complex than that, and you can be introverted and still really enjoy and make beautiful connections with people, but that's just not maybe your primary way that you show and receive energy. So I think I've had to kind of accept that and realize that I need to take care of that part of myself. The part that wants to just sit inside and not do anything for a night, that's okay. Give myself that space and not feel like I have to be constantly doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a routine that you go to?
I think so. Yeah. I have a pretty standard routine, like week to week. Certain nights where I'll go out and do certain things, or that I'm over here working on this. So definitely try to work to have a routine that does get me out of the house.
Yeah.
How about for you?
Sometimes jams.
Yeah.
Usually, when I'm not teaching at the academy is nice because I have students there, and that's like a routine during the week. But when I lose routine, I go off the deep end.
Yeah, man.
Become a total hermit and just total lack of self-discipline.
Yeah.
But I also practice. I think I'm addicted to practicing.
I believe it. Yeah, that's a real thing.
Which is, again, something that it's like, you kind of have to be alone to do. And I live alone now, and I miss living in a house where you live with other people, and sometimes there's jams. And even though it might not be the most convenient when you want to be alone or have peace and quiet, you at least always have that social aspect.
Right.
And there's the constant energy of other people live in their lives you can kind of bounce off, and I feel like that kind of helps keep you in check.
Sure. Yeah, living alone can be tough in that way.
It's strange. It's super nice, but after a while, I think it's like I really understand now when I heard like, oh, humans are social creatures.
Yeah.
For a while, most of my life I was like, I'm not.
And now that you live alone, you're like, I need somebody.
Yeah, I need someone who's not imaginary.
Right.
But
do you have any weird things that you do at home? Like, I talk to myself all the time. Like, if I'm home alone and I'm working or taking a shower or you name it, I'm probably talking to myself.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
That. Have you ever been talking to yourself and you realize after what sounds like a conversation with yourself that you don't live alone right now and your roommate's in the other room and they've heard everything you've just said to yourself?
I cannot say I've no, I've not had that happen. But I have had full conversations with myself in like different voices, like voice 1, voice 2.
Okay.
So I hope nobody could hear that.
Like, are these voices that you work on, or?
No, it'd be like maybe just my best voice to characterize who I think it is in the situation. Like if it's someone who's annoying, I'll give them an annoying voice.
What would be?
I don't know.
Oh. That's funny. Yeah, the voices thing is nice. Have you ever I do that, and I'll try to sound like voice, because I'll also like just go down the YouTube rabbit hole
Oh,
where you're
yeah.
just watching YouTube video after YouTube video, and I
Yep.
get really into interviews with like directors and
Okay.
musicians, and I'll start doing a voice that I think I have, and then I do it for someone, and they're like, "Why the hell are you talking like that? Who's that supposed to be?" I'm like, "It's David Lynch, man. What the heck?" And
Damn,
it's like,
how many videos did you watch?
I know. It's just like, dude, you gotta get outside and talk to people in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's also the aspect of the more time you spend alone, you start to lose some conversational skills.
You do. I work from home. I started working from home about 3 years ago. And I've noticed that my social anxiety has gone through the roof, man. Like, I really have a hard time in social settings now.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I find myself really not knowing what to say. If I have to work extra hard and brush up on my social skills.
Yeah. How do you work extra hard in brushing up on your social skills? To like go to house parties, or do you force yourself to like go to festivals?
Oh man, that sounds like a nightmare to me. Going to a house party, that's maybe my actual nightmare.
Really?
No. I think I just try to be intentional about when I am interacting with people,
Mm-hmm.
that focusing on that feeling that I feel weird doing it. Just trying to acknowledge that I feel really weird about this, and then getting through that feeling, and nothing bad happens, and I don't make myself look stupid or whatever the kind of worst case scenario is that you get in your head in those moments. It's just about realizing that you can get through it, and it's not that bad, not that scary.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time where maybe you haven't gotten through it?
I'm sure. Yeah, there are like various work situations I can think of where I would go into a client meeting and like really just totally blow it.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's tough to swallow, I think. When you really drop the ball in that way, whether it's at work or in a performance, like when you just knowingly screw up. Like,
yeah, but there's a lot to learn from that.
Sure.
There's real strength in failure like that. You know,
Yeah.
that's one thing I think people who are just naturally very social, and like I've never had to deal with social awkwardness or social anxiety, which I mean I just can't understand not being able to relate to that, because
Right.
that's such a huge part of. It's been such a pretty big part of my life.
Right.
But just like if you've never struggled with that, with the nervousness of meeting someone new or talking to a total stranger, I don't understand. Like how is it? Where's the great? There's like a beauty in that. It's really really beautiful to talk to someone and then fail, and then you learn from that mistake, and you adapt and you change, and then you go and you talk to another person, and you have that experience of like, oh, I'm definitely not going to say this. Does that make any sense?
It does. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier when you're playing a piece for somebody for the first time. You don't know how it's going to go. It could fall flat on its face, and it's like that in a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I don't know, it gives you a little bit of adrenaline.
It does. It does. And I mean, this is like, I don't like to work with people who have never failed.
Right.
And I like, if I ever met someone and they're like, I've never failed at anything, and been like, I want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
Like, I've never, like, no, man. It's like, you have to fail at something. You should fail. And the people who fail the most are usually the strongest people.
Right.
The strongest people and the most, and on the other side of that, some of the most successful people in the world have failed. More than the least successful people. A lot of times. I mean, it's such a wide spectrum of stuff, but yeah, man, there's beauty in failure.
I agree. No, it's a really good perspective. And there's something that just feels that much better about when you can get it done the next time.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's always good to, I used to be a lot better about this, but setting aside something to do every day that I knew I would probably fail at.
I like that.
Getting into that routine.
Yeah.
And then I discovered it didn't really help if you were alone all the time, and easily depressed.
Right.
But it's great if you want to get better at something. It's like give yourself a limit that you're never going to fail at.
Yeah.
And then try to achieve that goal. And then if you do it the next day, man, you're going to build some calluses in the mind,
Right.
pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's painful. It's uncomfortable, but you can't really argue with the result.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, an association I've heard you made a couple times tonight so far has been between the idea of being alone and the idea of being depressed or being isolated. It's just something really interesting that I've been thinking about between the times that I've felt the worst in my life were some of the most isolated and alone. And just kind of tying into that idea that we are social creatures and we do want to feel connected. It just made me realize how important it's been in my own life to make sure that I'm taking the time and space to be deliberate about making those connections and making sure that they're leaving me feeling satisfied. Because if I haven't paid close attention to that, I can get really deep down the isolated and away from everybody rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So I think it's just really important to feed that part of yourself and remain connected and do things that feel meaningful to you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I sound really depressed?
No.
Okay.
Oh God! Don't tell him.
God.
No, I think I heard you use the word alone and isolated multiple times in the same sentence. So I was kind of pulling on. I was kind of pulling on that association there. You don't sound depressed.
Oh, thank you. Neither do you.
Well, you're wrong. No, I'm not depressed right now, but there's time. There's plenty of time.
These are conversational skills we were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Coming out in full force. So we've danced around quite a bit. Seems like we're doing pretty well on time here. I got a couple wrap questions for you.
Uh-oh.
It wouldn't be a looping violin podcast if I didn't ask you, what do you think of Andrew Bird?
Love him.
Cool. My sister would not forgive me if I didn't ask. She's a huge Andrew Bird fan.
I've seen him the past 2 times he's come through Asheville.
Nice.
Everything he does is so tasteful.
Oh, it's incredible.
Oh, man. He just, yeah, very, very tasteful, very, 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 very thoughtful is the impression I get. Like, yeah. He's really about it. And I've never been, like, obsessed with him, but I've definitely been bit by the Andrew Bird bug.
Sure.
Following his stuff from, like, Bowl of Fire to, back when he was in, doing the album Wasn't Music of Hair, I think. It was my favorite album of his.
What's his new record called? I think it's My Finest Work Yet.
That was the one he released earlier this year.
Okay.
His full-length album. He released a Christmas album a few weeks ago called Hark.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's good.
Cool.
It's really good. It's a Christmas album.
Right.
But my first thought was like, oh, it's a Christmas album.
Yeah.
But then I listened to it. I was like, no, it's a good album.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, he's got some covers on it, like Skating from the Charlie Brown score and all that. But yeah, it's just he does everything so well. And then his live performance, just the way he's grown with his band and his songwriting is so good.
Yeah.
His arrangements. I'm just like, dude, the way he utilizes a loop station and the way his harmonies just flow from one to the other. And he always seems very humble about it, too. I haven't met him in person, but I've seen him on stage, and he seems like he's very true to himself is the impression I get.
Right.
I really hope that's what he's like in person. I would hate to ever have that impression dashed upon the rocks on the shore.
Right.
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 But yeah, I gotta love Andrew Bird. He's a huge influence. He and Reggie Watts were my first influences on the loop station.
Very cool. Yeah, Reggie Watts is great too.
Yeah.
He's got some good stuff.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
It's amazing.
So tell me a little bit about Leave This World Alive, EP that you have on Spotify. Just give me a little overview about what it was like recording that, who you worked with, and just your overall kind of response and how you've been feeling about the project.
Yeah, so at the time when we recorded the project, we had just come off playing a string of gigs every weekend for about a month and a half with Carly Tate.
Okay.
My friend Carly Tate. She's a fabulous singer-songwriter, one of my best musical friends, man. She's really cool. And it was with her band because we were playing together all the time. So we had just played some festivals and out-of-town gigs every weekend, and then when we were back in town, we were rehearsing, getting ready for that. And we had cut an album of hers the year before. So that was with Jack Victor on drums, who goes by Slow Packer now.
Okay.
I think he had a show at the Mallflight last night.
Cool.
And then Mike Victor, who was on bass, and he also mixed it, and was studio engineer for it. And then Zach Carden, who now goes under the artist name Southern Pine.
Okay.
Since then, he was doing the guitar work. Yeah, Jack was on drums. And then Patrick O'Neill sat in and played bass, or played cello on the first song, Wonderful Wonderland. But they were arrangements of tunes that I'd, they were tunes I'd written, had written for the most part for about a year, except for one song that I wrote on a whim because for some reason on August of 2018 was rough for everybody.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to go into the studio and do another intense emotional song. So I wrote a very funny, lighthearted song that turned out to be the favorite song of the group to play.
Ah, that's awesome. Cool.
Yeah, so it's just a 4-song EP. We recorded in two separate studio sessions. The first one at their old studio, which was in a house that they were living in when Midnight Snack was still together. That was their band for a bit. And then the other 2 sessions were recorded at Mike's studio, which is over by Harvest Records.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and they were, tracked with just instrumental. I was playing acoustic guitar. Zach was playing the electric, and then the electric bass and drums, and then we overdubbed tracked the string parts later.
Okay.
And just doing all the arrangements. I learned a lot from it. Learned a lot from that project. It was great. And then Sarah Marshall, who's a mastering engineer in New York, mastered it. Mixed it with Mike over the span of a few weeks. Going into the project, it was my first real project. It was like my first real project. So I was like, I'm going to go over the top. It's like I'm going to conquer the moon.
Right.
So I put all this thought into the arrangements and then the mixes, and it was pretty heavy on a lot of string parts. But I like it, though. It's
That's
pretty
good stuff.
It was pretty lo-fi, but it was really classically influenced, too. You can tell. But learned a lot from it. It was a lot of fun. And then Peter Brownlee also did some of the tracking with him over at his studio.
Okay.
He was a great sound engineer. He moved out to L.A. this past summer.
Cool. Sounds like a lot of talented people working on one thing. That's really good. To have
it was fun. And then it's like they're always working on stuff, and their production knowledge is amazing.
Right.
So they were the first people I really started playing with when I moved to town, when I was busking, because Carly and that group was the first band I really then invited me to play with them.
Cool.
And that was in 2016, I think. So I learned a lot from them. And it's funny that now, they have studios that we rehearse in and stuff.
Right.
And a few years ago, we were rehearsing in this dilapidated house. It's like, oh, hey, it's going all right.
Moving on up.
Yeah. But and then we always kind of help each other out with projects or just when we see each other. It's like you live in a town and then you make connections with people, and it's just the roots grow. It's great. It's awesome.
Definitely.
Here I have a copy of it.
Ah, that's great.
And the album art was by this local artist named
thanks so much, man.
Chris Lars.
Way cool.
Yeah, it's so strange. I'm so used to making ends meet by just playing for people that when you have a tangible item,
right?
It's sort of like, I sell this.
They give me money and I give them CD. I don't get it.
Why can't I just play for them?
Why can't they just listen?
Listen.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Definitely going to give that a listen.
Yeah. So, it was released on Spotify, but we had a EP release show, I think in February.
Okay.
When I released the first single, and then I didn't even have the CDs pressed or anything like that. But that's the only time that we've ever played the full thing with the full band in public. Cool. It was a fun night. It was a really, really fun night.
Where did you do that?
That was at the Sly Grog.
Nice.
Yeah, that was really cool. And it's nice, too, because we had, a classic, we had my friend Jeremy, who was opening up for us, who hosts some of the music over at Alley Cat.
Okay.
now. And then the slide rock was great. And then we had like Patrick came up on cello, and we played like the Handel Halverson Passacaglia for viola and violin, arranged for cello and violin.
Okay.
So we had this classical acoustic breakdown in the middle of it.
Oh, cool.
Got really, really quiet, and then we did that and did some looping. It was a fun night. It was a really good night. But yeah, I finally got around to ordering the CDs and releasing this full thing. Like, in October.
Okay.
And I just was like, I'm terrible at releases. I like to create music. I don't like to apply it to this very strict format and release it in a very strict way, because there's a good way to do that, you know. But it's not the thing I'm very good at. Good at. That being said, it was a fun project, and then I ended up releasing a solo album before I released that.
Okay.
That I just went to the studio with and recorded some live violin looping with that, and that's purely instrumental. And that one was recorded for my niece, because I had a new niece come into the world, and
very exciting.
Yeah, it's baby music.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like really simple loops.
Yeah.
Very, very quirky sounding stuff. Harmonically very, very simple, but just some ideas I've been working on for a while. And that's on Spotify too. That one's cool. That one's called Chrysalis. Just an instrumental album, all looping violin. Again, very DIY.
Yeah.
You know, I like the vibe of like something not being polished. It's like it's the same vibe when you listen to like live jazz recordings.
Sure.
It's like they're just in the studio.
Yeah, and they're messing up and just keep going.
It's great. It's real.
Yeah.
And then you're like, it's never going to be that way again.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so I ended up doing that. And I didn't get that one pressed to CDs or anything, but yeah. And then I have a bunch of recordings. I just haven't released any of them.
Yeah.
Or mixed them. And I'm almost like a hoarder when it comes to recordings. I'm sure a lot of people are like...
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a lot of people can be.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially this day and age when it's so easy to record yourself. You know?
Right.
But yeah, doing that, and then I have a bunch of jazz tunes I got to record at some point, because every Saturday I have a jazz band that plays over at Chestnut.
Oh, cool.
And we write our own tunes for that.
Nice.
And that's a completely different style. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that challenging for you, being such a different style?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
But it helps. I mean, because after a while, it's all just music.
Mm-hmm.
It's all just music. The things that people associate with, like, oh, it's jazz or it's rock, is oftentimes just the people who are playing it.
Right.
You can never encapsulate like the spirit or the meaning of a song with the way it's categorized. You know, the way that we categorize everything is always secondary to what it actually is.
Right.
So it's music. And people might hear a tune and be like, oh, that's a jazz tune. You know, because it has a swing and it's a lot of 2-5-1s and it has the characteristics of it. But if it's a good tune, it'll just be a good tune.
Right.
A good song is a good song. It doesn't matter who's playing it. It can stand it has its own clout, you know. It's like there are some songs that like an artist writes or a band writes, and no matter who covers it, it's impossible to ruin it.
Yeah.
It's just good
because it's a good
music.
song. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great point.
that's a very simplified way of thinking about it, but oftentimes the tunes I write for that, or that we might write for that collectively, are written with the in mind of like, okay, so Ryan and Dan are going to be playing these instruments, and it's for this specific event. I should write it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny too is a lot of classical music was written like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the symphonies were premiered in beer halls, and people were just writing all these great works of like art, like sonatas and partitas and stuff for the weekend gig at the bar.
Yeah.
Because they were like, oh, I got to fill, like Schubert's being like, oh, I got to fill 4 hours. Okay, I got to write a quintet. Let's do it now. And then, like, not even thinking, or like Corelli, like, you know, writing a violin concerto, and then, like, not even thinking, oh, yeah, 300 years later, people are going to be studying it like the Bible.
Right.
He's probably just thinking, man, I gotta pay my irrigation bill, and got to keep a roof over my head.
Yeah.
So it's funny like that, but I mean that's a fun tune because it's nice to write music, and you have to write it I write all my music by hand.
Okay.
When I really like it. I mean, yeah, writing it by hand, I got to get better at using software. But of course, writing it on the loop first and just hearing it, and if the idea sticks and you can't visually see it, then you write it down. Like, okay, there's some truth to this that needs to come out. I got to pursue this a little bit more. And it's always a nice outlet to have other people who are real people playing the parts that you've written.
Right.
Because then you really get to see how it bounces off of other people and the potential for connections through that.
Yeah.
You know, because playing the loop is great. But if you only play with a loop, you're not playing with anyone.
Right.
And that's dangerous too.
Yeah, it almost takes the soul out of playing with actual live other people. But
yeah, literally.
yeah,
Literally, you know, hopefully with all the AI that's coming out now, I hope that it never gets so bad where it's like, have your own band. You know, they'll play everything for you.
download your band.
Download your
now.
band. Would you like a snarky bass player? Would you like a reserve bass player? Or would you like Alexa as your bass player?
I'm taking snarky.
Snarky. Okay. I don't know what a snarky bass player would say.
I don't know either.
I don't think I've ever met a snarky bass player.
I don't think you're allowed to be a snarky bass player. I think you have to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Calm and collected.
Calm, collected. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think they perform the ritual where they remove that part of your personality when you apply for school, I think. I think that's part of...
Just take out that part of your brain.
The orientation. Yeah, it's a lobotomy. Well, it's
pretty graphic.
I think it comes out the nose, though.
Really?
Or maybe the eye. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. Technology is advanced so
We'll have to look that up.
Yeah. But, yeah. So...
Cool. So we've talked about a lot, man. We're doing pretty good on time. I think we've run over just a bit. Is there anything else you'd like to share on the violin? Anything else that comes to mind quick that you want to play before we wrap?
Yeah, man. I know I mentioned Fritz Kreisler earlier, but is it cool if I just play some Bach for you?
Sure, dude. That'd be great.
Cool.
Please do. And then after that, we'll get ready to wrap up for today. That was beautiful, man.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. What was the name of that tune?
That was Bach's second Partita in D minor, the
D minor.
Allemande. It's so different playing in these studios.
Yeah.
It's so dry, and it's like you're hearing yourself through these.
Yeah.
And not through these. Cool. Yeah, that's such a good piece, man.
Yeah, that was beautiful, man. Thanks again for sharing.
Thanks, man.
And thanks for joining me today. Really enjoyed talking to you today.
Thanks for having me. This has been awesome.
Yeah, for sure, man. Really would love to have you back sometime and get to see some more stuff on the violin.
I'm down anytime.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining Breathing Room, everybody. This has been episode 6 with Alex Travers. Until next time, don't forget to breathe, and we will talk to you soon. Cool, man.
Yeah, man. Finally, I can eat some more cookies.
You didn't.
Yeah.